Segment 2, Gold and Black Live. I want to thank our sponsors, Triple X and Hilton Garden Inn, and of course, State Farm agent Trent Johnson. Brian Neubert. We're joined by Chris Balas from the Wolverine.com. Chris is about as much a veteran in his business as Brian and myself are, though, and we're thrilled to have you on. And you know, we all like basketball, and Brian will physically be there tonight in Mackey Arena. But if you like basketball, Chris, tonight is a game on paper, at least, that you just want to sit back and say these are two fun, interesting college basketball teams going at each other in Mackey Arena.
Yeah, well-coached teams, and that's the thing I've always appreciated about Purdue and you guys. It's professional, man. And you look at Matt Painter. I remember seeing him in an elevator one time and saying, "Man, I just love watching your teams play." And you guys know Kent Sheets, who was a longtime subscriber. Last year, a good friend up here in Ann Arbor. We used to talk hoops all the time, just a mutual respect there for the programs. And Beeline versus Painter, man, it didn't get much better. It was interesting to me to see how that was going to continue with Juwan Howard. But he came in here and he preserved the culture. And a lot of what they do is a lot of what Beeline did. And you can tell they're meshed and really still play well together as a team. Really impressed with what he's done. Always impressed with Purdue. Really disappointed that there's not going to be a crowd there tonight because that's one of the best atmospheres in the Big Ten.
Oh, it would be unbelievable tonight if that was the case. Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, just how much NBA influence you seeing with these guys right now, Chris, in terms of what they do offensively and kind of things like that?
It's a great question. And I actually talked to Beeline the other day to get his take on that. And he said, you know, I see a lot of the 5-out stuff and the stuff that we did, but then there are some pro principles, a lot more post stuff. Obviously, when you've got a guy like Hunter Dickinson, the big freshman, who's leading the team in scoring, they're going to go down and play more inside out than outside in. You see double posts, you know, you get it in there, and if they're not where they want to be, they're going to repost and really play through him. Teams have started to adjust to that. They're starting to double team Hunter Dickinson, not letting him get his 28 like he did against Maryland, but you're seeing a lot of that from Juwan Howard, which we expected. Now, you still got a lot of the spread floor stuff because that's how the Miami Heat play, and that's what the game has become. But there's no question that you're seeing more of the post game. And Juwan Howard said when he saw Hunter Dickinson on the recruiting trail, he said, "That's my guy. This is how I want to play." Didn't come in and disrupt everything and blow up the culture, but he certainly added his own element to this offense.
Yeah. Purdue died 1,000 deaths, I suppose, to some extent with Hunter Dickinson. Both Purdue obviously recruited him heavily. He is terrific, and it just seems interesting that Michigan's had some. And I know, this is overly simplistic, and you guys will shred this thought. And it's about Mitch McGary. They're different, and I get it, but they were both tied to Purdue at one time, and both went to Michigan. I love the way they play, but we'll talk about the role of Phil Martelli and also just how that blending has worked so well. It's no secret that Juwan Howard made a very good strategic move by getting him on his staff. But talk about the role of the staff at Michigan and how that also comes forward with what Juwan Howard's team puts on the court.
Yeah, Juwan, talk about self-awareness now. This is a guy who and said, "I don't know it takes to be a head coach." Not that he can't coach, but he said, "I needed a right-hand man here who's been through it." And Martelli's been in it for decades, literally, the ins and outs and the everyday operation of a program. And he said he called him just looking for advice. And then when they were talking, he said, "This is my guy, man. I would love to have him on board." And talk to Martelli. Martelli said he would not have taken the job. He told me this summer if he didn't think that Juwan Howard had what it took to win on a Monday night and cut the nets down. And he said, "I was blown away by his humility and what I really sensed from him and talking to people as a person. Not some guy that's going to come in here, this is my way, we're going to do this." You know, Rich Rodriguez at Michigan, right? Blowing up the culture and doing it my way. That was really, honestly, my concern when you look at how these coaches haven't panned out. Chris Mullen, Patrick Ewing, you know, and going on national radio shows. And I took a lot of heat for it because you just don't know what's going to happen. But that self-awareness and bringing Phil Martelli in, who is really a calming influence, and the other guys on the staff, Howard Isley has NBA coaching experience. He still get used to the recruiting aspect. And then keeping Sadi Washington, who was kind of the buffer there and has been a great recruiter for them. I think the staff is fantastic, and he really leans on them. But I'll tell you what, this is Juwan Howard's team. And I had a high school coach went to one of his practices last year, and he said the stuff that he's running and the way he's running it, they're going to have a really good chance to be successful here. And so far, and they're, we're still early in his tenure, but so far it's proving to be accurate.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people missed on with Juwan Howard was that he was an established coach. He was an NBA assistant coach. Before that, he played forever. He was a coach on the floor kind of guy. I have never heard a negative word about Juwan Howard in years and years and years covering recruiting and all that stuff. And he seems like he's got the personality. He's got the humility about him. He's got the self-awareness about him. This wasn't Chris Mullen coming in as like a figurehead. This wasn't just a sort of prop coach. I thought they made an absolute home run hire when they did that, and it sure seems to be working out that way. To switch gears here, the guy who I think is the toughest matchup for Purdue tonight is Isaiah Livers. What kind of season is he having this year, adjusting to playing alongside a really good big man, a really influential big man, and all of that?
Yeah, another great question. You've got two wings, right? And Wagner and Livers, who will probably be playing in the NBA. Now, Livers is still a little bit limited in what he can do off the bounce. So he's still more of a catch and shoot guy. And he tries to force it at times. And when he does, he's turning it over a little bit. So, but what he's done is really understood that, when things aren't working, he defers, and a sign of a great teammate. But the way he's shooting the ball, he's 96% from the free throw line this year after going 97 last year. If he could do a little bit more off the bounce and, even post up a little bit more and get to the line, that's a huge advantage for Michigan. But the way he's shooting the ball and the way all these guys are shooting the ball right now, it's a pick your poison. I know it's a cliche, man, but when you've got a Hunter Dickinson in there, when they double, like Maryland tried to the other night, Northwestern tried it against Hunter Dickinson, they're getting great looks, and Livers has been fantastic in that role. So the guy really who has come on lately is Wagner. Franz Wagner has been fantastic on both ends of the floor, and that's another thing about this team. Livers' defense has gotten better. Franz Wagner is an elite defender, and Michigan's got 2 or 3 of those. So that's why I'm very interested to see how they match up tonight, and how Purdue matches up with Michigan. But you were right about Livers, man. When he's shooting the ball the way he is, and I think he's about 43% now from 3, that's a tough guard for any team.
I know Matt Painter said yesterday in his availability that he said, well, Michigan's got the best offense in the league, and it might have the best defense in the league. And that's one thing you don't always think about, because Michigan's so fluid, so can do so many things offensively. You forget how good the Wolverines can be defensively. Now, if you're a Purdue fan watching this game, what happened at Minnesota? I watched a little bit of the game, didn't see it all, but what did Minnesota? And Minnesota's really has been good at home, and has got a lot of talent. So I'm not bad mouthing them. But tell us a little bit about what happened in that game. Just did Minnesota come on something that made a difference, expose something?
Yeah, they extended their defense. Number one, Michigan was without Eli Brooks.
Yeah.
So they're down a guard on this team. Sean D. Brown has been fantastic. He's not a natural 2 guard, so that really kind of messed things up. They did not move the ball well. They missed shots, turned it over, I think, 20 times, which is, you're never going to win a game like that, right? And on top of that, they flustered Hunter Dickinson. They really did a nice job doubling him and forcing him in, I think, the 5 turnovers, and he was throwing the ball over the gym. So they adjusted well to that when Maryland tried it. So, and of course they had Eli Brooks back as well, which is huge. He's one of the more underrated players, in my opinion, in the Big Ten. What he's done defensively this year against some outstanding guards, Marcus Carr and everybody else, you can go right down the list. He's been outstanding. So they didn't come to play. B, that's a tough place to play, whether there are crowds there or not. And we've seen that. They've beaten Ohio State there. I think they beat Wisconsin there, or Iowa. They beat Iowa there earlier in the year. So just one of those things where didn't bring their A game. We really wanted to see how they would come back against Maryland because we knew, as Martelli told us, the blueprint was out. Here's what they're going to do to Hunter now. Here's how they're going to extend their defense against guys like Mike Smith, Michigan's point guard. They responded very well.
Yeah. Purdue's going to double Dickinson tonight. That's what they do against everybody. How's he handling that pressure? How is he handling being that kind of focal point sort of guy?
It's kind of new. And, you know, Maryland didn't do it the first time around, and they got torched for 28 points. We kept waiting for them to adjust. They didn't until the second game, and they didn't do it very well. I would imagine that Purdue will do it much better. He's been flustered at times, and there's no question about it. Against Minnesota, turned it over 5 times. It was much better. And like Juwan said, he said, you don't have to make the dynamite pass, just reverse the ball, you know, and then we can get it moving and look for open shooters. But that's really been a key is, you know, getting those open shots. Mike Smith made 3 triples right from the get-go, made it 9-0, I think, against the other night against Maryland when they started doubling Dickinson in the post. He had some really good looks. They've got a bunch of shooters on this team, man, that can kill you. So, but you take your chances, right? And I think you're going to see a much better coached defensive team, obviously, in Purdue. And like you said, this is what they're going to do, and they do it well. So that's why I think this is not going to be a game where Michigan's going to get easy points. There's no question about it. And that's why I'm so fascinated to see this chess match tonight. Nothing but great respect for Matt Painter. We've said that for years. I know that he and Beeline got along really well. That's what makes this one really intriguing.
Yeah, I have enjoyed watching Beeline on Big Ten Network too. I think he brings, once he gets his feet under him, so to speak, and he brings a lot to learn a lot of basketball. Watching him and listening to him on that. All right, now a question for both of you guys, and I don't know how much you saw the game. I didn't see a lot of it, but Indiana goes into Iowa and just smokes. The 12 points, at least that's an impressive victory.
Well, they smoked them in the last 5 minutes of that game. It was
Tell me, you know, and I know Iowa hadn't played and whatever, but the landscape of the Big Ten. I'll start with you, Chris. I mean, there are some teams, Iowa, Michigan, maybe in Illinois, maybe at the very top, but this is a fascinating league because Indiana was looking like it was going to mail in the rest of the season, and then it goes and beats Iowa last night.
Friend's always good for one of those, right? Or two.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And or maybe more. And that's why, you know, you wait until the second half. Honestly, the midway point of the Big Ten season means nothing to me anymore. And, you know, oh, wow, they're 9-1. Well, what's their schedule look like down the stretch, A? And B, who do they have to play? You know, you look at Wisconsin last year, came out of nowhere, right? And I think won 6 or 7 of their last games in a row. Wouldn't surprise me to see something like that happen again. Michigan's schedule is backloaded. They've got to go to Michigan State. They've got to go. They still have to play Iowa at home. They play Illinois, you know, teams that they've missed the first time around. No, I'm not saying they've had an easy schedule so far, but it's been easier compared to some of these other teams in the Big Ten. So, but that was fascinating to me because I was watching and Iowa was pulling away, I think, in the first half. Weren't they, Brian? I think it was like
they were up 9 at one point, I think,
right.
Was their peak.
Right. And I thought, okay, they're going to fold an Archie Miller team. They're going to fold. And I was stunned. I think I was watching Real Housewives of something, you know, and not really. But I flipped back, man. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, they fell apart. So credit to Indiana, you know, but, you know, Iowa's good for one or two of those. I thought 14-6 might win this league with as balanced as it is. I still wouldn't be surprised, you know, with the COVID deal, who knows how many games are going to be played, but if 5 losses wins this league, it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Brian, what was your take?
Well, I think Iowa missed C.J. Frederick for one thing. They didn't have him in the second half, and they couldn't make a shot. Jordan Bohannon goes 0 and that's not going to happen very often. You have to give Indiana a ton of credit. They really, you know, I didn't think they were playing great defense prior to this, and that's what they have to do because they're not a great offensive team either. But I thought they really played really good defense on Garza. I thought they really did a good job in the second half without as many bases to have to cover because Bohannon wasn't making shots and C.J. Frederick was out. But credit to them for adjusting on the fly. Credit to them for doing a lot of positive things offensively. Their freshmen gave them a lift. You know, their freshmen aren't the most talented guys in the Big Ten, but, you know, Christian Lander was out there in crunch time. Didn't show up as a liability. Jordan Geronimo did some positive things for him. It's just the Big Ten this year is that there are no gimmies. I mean, that's what I said about Penn State when they played at Purdue is that every game is the Hunger Games. You know, it's there other than Nebraska, you know, there's really no night off here. And I shouldn't even say that because who knows what Nebraska's going to be in the second half of the season once they got their antibodies.
Which they have.
Which they should have. But it's just it is just an absolute cluster this year. And, you know, as you guys said before, the eventual Big Ten champion is going to lose a hell of a lot of games. Look what happened to Wisconsin at Michigan, you know?
Yeah.
Wisconsin's got a bunch of 24-year-olds playing for them, and they go to Michigan and get killed. And, you know, Wisconsin comes to Purdue last year and gets killed. That's just kind of the nature of the Big Ten this year. It's cannibalizing Illinois. It's cannibalizing Rutgers, a couple of the teams that were supposed to be the best in the league.
Yeah.
You know, Iowa looked like they were legit top 5. Look what happened to them last night. Michigan looks legit top 5. Let's see what kind of happens to them from here. As Chris said, their schedule is kind of backloaded. It is going to be fascinating, and they got to get these games in, though. Yeah. All of these postponed games, they got to play them, because for the integrity of the standings, you can't just say that, you know, so-and-so gets to play Nebraska twice, but Purdue doesn't. That's not fair. You can't do that. So I don't know what they're going to do here, but I wouldn't want to be the Big Ten schedule maker. Otherwise, hey, look, let's cancel the Big Ten tournament. Just have everybody go to Indy and play all the postponed games, like back-to-back days. How about that?
Sounds like a good idea. I know Fran McCaffrey hinted about
Lightning
how
round.
they're trying to get those schedules, and Purdue has a vested interest because it lost one of its games at home against Nebraska on January 5th. So I want to ask one more basketball question, and Chris, before we wrap up, I want to ask you a football question. But
Sure.
Just the difference. I mean, obviously you play and you cover teams in the most iconic venue in college football, and obviously Chrysler Arena. It's empty, and it's such a different world. What's been your take of that? I mean, it's outside of, you know, we're all looking forward to when we can see crowds back in. I mean, we talk about tonight's game. It would be unbelievable in Mackey Arena if it was full. Yeah. But what's the temperature up there, at least in terms of, you know, just that need to get this question may be somewhat rhetorical in nature, but it's, you know, you have we all want to see a lot of fans in the stands, and it definitely changes the dynamic, I guess is my question.
It feels like a high school JV game, and you've got the kids on the sidelines that are pounding chairs and making noise, you know, and then like a handful of fans that are parents in the stands too, you know, go Jimmy, go, you know, it's crazy like that. But they've done a really nice job of that. I hate the piped in noise, you know, because I'm an old, and you love it, you said?
Awful. Something like freaking Clockwork Orange.
Somebody, exactly. You feel like you want to pull your eyebrows. But it's been weird that way. But it's fun in a way that, okay, you get the real youthful exuberance side of it, where, okay, these kids are really into it, and they're the ones making the noise, and these guys are feeding off their teammates, and you watch them, their antics on the bench, you know, and jumping up and down. It's a lot of fun, but you miss it, man. You think like on a run, like when they're beating Wisconsin the way they did, and Minnesota, they're up by 40 points. That place has been going crazy, and you're like, man, really miss that. So, and that's what I'm going to miss about Purdue. I've been there once, you know, and it was fascinating. By the way, these guys are busing down to Purdue. I don't know if you knew that. I think that's that's a long trip in the snow. So that's something else that I was thinking about. Boy, you know, have you ever been on a long bus trip and then, you know, get to a venue and you don't play your best? It's going to be interesting to see how they come out tonight. But it's been weird, and I miss it a lot. I remember being at the Big Ten tournament last year when Michigan was getting ready and there was nobody in there, and I'm like, this just isn't right, man. It's weird. So really looking forward to the day when we get that back, because that's such a huge part of the college experience.
Yeah, Brian, I think you always said about there's some strange advantages that you sometimes can hear what the coaches are doing if you get close enough.
Yeah,
and that's an interesting dynamic as you see that.
Yeah, so, I was pretty disappointed at Indiana because I had the best seat in the house. I was literally like right over Painter's shoulder, and I was looking forward to hearing everything he said in timeouts, but they played the music too loud.
Yeah.
During the stoppages, so I couldn't hear a word he said, but I was like right on top of him. It is really fun, I think, to hear, you know, when kids go to the basket, you know, screaming N1, all that stuff, just like an AAU tournament. It is bad, no matter what level it is, it's still basketball. They're still kids. Yeah. You know, when Purdue played at Illinois, every time Purdue shot, Kofi Coburn was like, hell no. I think that's really charming.
And he was right for most of that game.
And he was right oftentimes. But the N1 thing cracks me up because it's so like, it's so like May AAU, you know. And,
It's every time, Brian.
yeah,
It's every time.
take his ass. Take his ass.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the day the fans are back too. I'm not looking forward to the day where parking gets complicated again and there are lines for the men's room at halftime. My 6-foot radius on Media Row is getting pretty comfortable. I'm getting a little bit spoiled here, but that's the least of the world's problems.
Yes.
All right, well, we got about a minute left in the segment. Chris, and maybe you can go on a little more than a minute, but I'm fascinated by the Jim Harbaugh re-sign. From our perspective, or from my perspective, I should say, interesting that Michigan made that choice. What say you on that? I mean, obviously he's signed for a 4-year contract, but at less pay, so to speak, but and a dynamic that I personally didn't expect.
In a lower buyout, let's be honest. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, and they're going to get rid of him or he's going to leave. And that's the thing. Half his salary, but a lot of incentives. I don't think he had any other opportunities, to be honest with you. Michigan, in the middle of a pandemic, running $100 million deficit. This is not Texas. This is not Alabama where, dollars be damned. We're going to go out and get the best guy and spend all this money. It just doesn't work that way here. So, and Jim Harbaugh's had some good years here, not great years. He's been within a hair of winning 2 Big Ten East championships, has shared one. So it's not like he's been god awful, but it was, there's an overhaul with the coaching staff, and last year was abysmal. He's got to improve the culture because that was really the area where they struggled last year.
Yeah, good answer and interesting, and it's going to be an interesting storyline from that opportunity. Of course, Purdue and Michigan were going to play last year, and football didn't, as the schedule ended up being switched around. I don't know. Now they're probably not on the schedule again for, 3 or 4 more years at least, I'm thinking. But interesting from that story. Hey, Chris, thanks so much for your time. We'll all look forward to that. We'll let Brian carry be the representative in Mackey Arena tonight, mask on, and it'll be an interesting college basketball game tonight. We always appreciate your work. You can catch it on thewolverine.com, and we'll be back for segment 3. Steve Lavin will join me, and we'll look forward to that as well. Stay tuned for the next segment on Gold and Black Live.